Hello, let's get ready together while I answer some questions. If you're here for my divorce video, hi. Thanks for watching and thanks for all the love. I made another video right before this talking about red flags, so you can go watch that one if you think that would be interesting. Okay, so I'm going to be answering more questions in this video. I put a little poll on Instagram to see if anybody wanted to know anything and got some questions. Okay, so the first one says, was it hard when so many people asked questions to you after your ex came out? No, it was not hard. It was actually really freeing that my ex came out. I think I mentioned this in the divorce video, but he told me that he was not going to come out until like 2 years later, and he ended up coming out 2 months later, like after we split. So yeah, I had been carrying this secret for years, and it was really, in Korean called 답답해, where it's like frustrating and like you can't get something out. And I couldn't talk to anybody about it, but now I could finally talk to people, or at least like they would know what was going on. So I actually think a lot of people were quite careful about asking me questions because I'm sure they thought it was like really personal, but I don't care. Like, if you know me in real life, like, ask me questions. I don't care. So wait, what was I saying? So yeah, it was just really freeing because I could talk about it openly. And I think there's this Maya Angelou quote out there that says like, the greatest agony one can bear is a story untold, or something like that. And I really resonate with that. Like, I think if I'm not allowed to talk about something or I can't talk about something, it's so much worse. And so when people were asking me questions and I could actually talk about it and answer questions and share my story, it was just really helpful. Obviously, this question did not include asking for advice, but if you're going through something like really hard, you haven't told anybody, and you can tell someone, like you're not bound by like someone else's secret or something, I would really encourage you to talk to somebody and tell people, because I don't know, it just makes it a lot better. So yeah, that wasn't hard. In fact, I preferred it. I think I would prefer people asking me rather than like making assumptions and stuff like that. Okay, next question. Have you struggled with resentment towards your ex's family? Okay, this is a good question because there is some context here. I mentioned in my divorce video that my ex comes from a pastor's family, so they had a lot of specific beliefs that I feel like I could have resented them for. However, I don't think I did. And I think the reason for that was because every choice that I made was mine. At the end of the day, they didn't force me to do anything, you know? Like, obviously, they didn't force me to marry him. Like, they didn't force me to stay with him. They didn't tell me what to do. They gave me a lot of advice, and they gave me a lot of thoughts about what they thought was right. They were never shy about that. Like, they were very clear in what they thought was right. And I think what they thought was right was that I should stay. Like, even if you transitioned and stuff. Like, not stay with him, like, separate, but, like, still stay married to him, and then, you know, pray and then hope that it's not like this forever. But yeah, that was a big part of why I struggled with deciding when to leave, because I really did have their voice in my head about what was right and what was wrong and what was biblical, what was unbiblical, and things like that. So I wanted their opinion, like that grandmother that I talked about in the divorce video, and then also my ex's mother and father. We talked a lot too, actually. I was pretty close with them, and we still have a good relationship. They were just sharing with me what they thought was true and what they thought was right. And so I think everyone is entitled to their beliefs. Like, in this day and age, if you think something that disagrees with somebody else, like, you could get canceled so fast and, you know, get called all these names and stuff. And I don't think that's right. And so I don't feel that way towards them. They were just sharing with me what they thought was right. And I even asked for that. Like, I asked for their opinion on those things. And so I have no reason to resent them. I think if I didn't take ownership over the situation and I was making decisions based on what they told me, and it felt like it wasn't my choice and it was just something that I was doing because they told me to do that, then I would have a lot of resentment towards them. I feel like I'm going to do this again where I'm going to give advice when this question did not ask for advice. But I think this is why it's so important to take ownership over your decisions. If you don't, then the resentment will creep in so fast because you're blaming your decision on somebody else when really it is, at the end of the day, your decision. So if somebody's telling you to do something that you don't want to do, or somebody's giving you advice that you just don't agree with or you don't feel good about it in your heart, but you decide to take action on that decision per their advice, that is still on you. Like, you made that choice. So just think about that. Like, in the decisions that you make, did you make that choice for yourself or because of somebody else? And if it's for somebody else, you are going to resent them. When you feel pressured by someone, you still need to own your own decisions. There's some advice that you didn't ask for. All right, next question. Was there a particular verse that helped you during your dark cloud seasons? Good question. I had to kind of think about this because I was like, did I have a verse? But I definitely did. The verse is 2 Corinthians 12:9. But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly of my weaknesses so that the power of Christ may rest upon me. Yeah, that was a good one. I really had to focus on God's grace being enough for me. This verse is in the context of Paul asking for a thorn to be removed from his side. And he asked him 3 times and God basically said no. And I'm curious what that thorn was. I don't think there's technically confirmation out there of what it was. I probably looked into it too because I was curious. But yeah, it doesn't really matter because whatever we're going through, God's grace is sufficient for us. And it doesn't feel that way sometimes because life is really hard and we go through really tough situations, but we're never alone and His grace is sufficient for us. And if we have His grace, which we do, if you're a believer, you have His grace and no one can take that away from you. That's all you need. And again, it doesn't feel that way all the time and it's really hard, and not to discount or invalidate how hard it is. But yeah, that was really comforting to me to know that even someone like Paul was really struggling and that's what God said to him. And so it kind of goes along with the theme of the whole I knew everything was going to be okay because I had God's grace and His grace was sufficient for me. And that's what Scripture says. So no matter what happened, it's going to be okay. I have everything I need, Okay. Have people flat out accused you of being transphobic because you left your ex? No one has accused me of being transphobic. The closest thing that I have felt to that, and this is kind of a stretch, but it reminds me of this. I feel like I lost friends that we had mutually on the East Coast because of this. And some of them I wasn't that close to, but there was one that I was really close to. But it was this girl that was in the same program as my ex, and we ended up hanging out a lot and becoming really good friends. We became good friends, even though I met her through my ex's program. And yeah, I don't know, when I moved back to Chicago, we kind of lost touch, but I really felt it strongly on her side, and I didn't feel like there was a reason for us to lose touch. I felt like I was still trying to keep in touch, and yeah, I just felt like she stopped trying because I moved back. And maybe she thought that I didn't have time for her anymore or something, which was not true. I think I could have been really, really hurt by that. But it was okay. I mean, obviously I still think about it and I just think it's kind of weird, what happened. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know what happened. But yeah, basically I lost a friend. I don't know if that's because of everything that happened with my ex and she didn't agree with me or something, but it definitely happened after we split and I moved back. And it was this very clear line of we're not really friends anymore. Sad. I do think that even if somebody is really affirming of the LGBTQ community, they can't deny that it's heartbreaking when you get cheated on. That's definitely one. And then also, if you didn't know before you married somebody and they change their gender or they want you to change your sexual orientation, because my ex wanted me to actually stay. No matter who I talk to and no matter what their beliefs are about this, they have all agreed with me that that was not fair and that is not fair. I think if anyone called me transphobic for leaving a marriage where essentially I didn't give consent of marrying this person that I didn't know fully, obviously because he didn't even know himself fully, I think that'd be pretty messed up. And obviously there are couples out there where somebody transitions and the other person stays. Great for them if that's what they want to do. But I think to expect everybody to do that would not be cool. I think most people would agree with that. So, okay, I'll do 2 more for the sake of time. What was the most unhelpful advice you heard during the hard days? I think the most unhelpful advice that I heard was something along the lines of me asking the wrong questions or not letting me get to where I needed to be on my own time. Essentially, not throwing, but essentially expecting Christian responses from me, I guess. I very much did not have a full understanding of God during this time. A huge transition that I made in my perspective of God was Him having been my master and now He became more my father. And I think that transition and that perspective shift, it was huge. That was a huge part of my growth as a Christian, and just my relationship with God has changed so drastically in having that perspective shift. But I think in order to get there, I had to ask a lot of questions. My struggle was trying to figure out what was right and wrong and what did God want me to do? And I was very fixated on what is the right thing to do in this situation. And I think that part of that stemmed from wanting to be obedient to God and wanting to honor God. And I think those are good things. But I think a lot of that too was also not right, in the sense that it was maybe just being more duty oriented or not fully understanding that God will love me no matter what, and that sometimes we don't know what the right thing to do is, but it's more about our heart and posture before God in the decisions that we make. And I think there's just there's a lot of nuances to these things, and anyone going through a hard time and trying to figure out what to do, we try our best, you ask for wisdom and you try your best. And I was having a really hard time getting over that hump of trying to figure out what to do. But anyway, during that process, I did have some voices telling me that I was asking the wrong questions, or, almost getting frustrated by my questions, or making me feel like I was a bad Christian for asking those questions. I don't know. I don't know how to phrase it. And that was not their intention. And it probably was frustrating because I was asking the same questions over and over. And I was just really stuck and feeling really, really unsure about what to do. This is why I was so grateful for my friend that I mentioned in the divorce video, in my little extra clip there, because she really did allow me to ask these questions an unlimited amount of times. I think if it wasn't for her, I would have really struggled, and it would have been really unhelpful to talk to anybody else about these things, because these are also questions that people don't have the answers to, and I'm really thankful for her. That was a huge part of why she means so much to me and helping me to get to where I am, because if she didn't let me ask the same questions over and over, it would have been really, really hard. So yeah, I think everyone has their own process, and it's frustrating. And if you don't have the capacity to listen to their questions over and over, or you don't have the capacity to hash things out with them and you don't know the answer, then communicate that, set your own boundaries too. But I think letting them get to where they need to be in their own process is really important, because once they arrive there, once I arrived there, I'm good. I was set and I have my answers now. I don't have tangible answers for every question that I had, but I have a lot of satisfactory answers and a whole perspective shift on my view of God and things that allow me to feel so content now and allow me to feel good about my decision and those kinds of things. So I think that process is really important, and letting people go through that process in their own way is really important. All right, last one. How did your non-negotiables change before and after your first marriage? I talked about the red flags in my first video. Obviously, those now became my non-negotiables. 2 non-negotiables that came up for me that are not for everybody. I know that there are girls out there who are okay with their boyfriends or husbands doing these things. But for me, the 2 that changed drastically, I'll say 3. 3 that changed drastically for me was no video games, no smoking and vaping, and they have to have good guy friends. So yeah, I think I mentioned that in my red flags video. When I was interrogating Daniel, I asked him that. And I think if he played any video games, even on his phone, he doesn't even play phone games, but I think if he played anything, I would have said, okay, that's fine. Of course you can play video games if you want, but I am not interested. It was just something that I'm just never willing to tolerate ever again. And obviously not. I married him and he doesn't do those things, luckily, because I think a lot of guys do play video games. And, whatever. You do you. If you're dating somebody who plays video games and it's fine, then it's fine. But for me, it was just associated with so many lies and sneaking around, and also just a lot of stress and contention between us, because I just really didn't approve of the time spent on video games. It is an absurd amount of time when somebody is addicted to video games. And I know that there are people out there who can justify the benefits of video games, but I'm sorry, I don't believe in it. I think that those benefits can be found elsewhere, and the social aspect of it, I think you can do that in person, or even talking on the phone. Talk to your friend on the phone if you want to do that. I don't know. Anyway, I'll just leave it at that. But yeah, that was a non-negotiable that changed for me, and it was an absolute non-negotiable. The thing about good friends is that my ex didn't have good guy friends, and I think it's really important for guys to have really solid guy friends, especially brothers in Christ if they're Christian. Yeah, I think there's a lot of reasons for that, and I also think that's kind of rare. I know many guys who don't have solid guy friends, and they're great guys. They're great husbands, great fathers, and I like them a lot. But for me, there were so many moments that I wished my ex had solid guy friends. The smoking and vaping, I feel like that's pretty self-explanatory. Can anyone justify smoking and vaping? Is there any benefit to it? I cannot think of one. It is so bad for you. It is so expensive. And oh my gosh, I really hated that. I'll just leave it at that. Okay. I've been recording for 30 minutes, so this video is way too long already. Obviously I'm going to trim it down, but there are 2 questions here that I wanted to address later in a different video. What would you say makes a couple compatible? And then 28 female here, advice for women who long for marriage and are afraid of lifelong singleness. I'll make a whole nother video on that, because that's talking about what you should look for and kind of a different topic that are related. So I'll save that for another video, but hope this was interesting and helpful. And like I said, I'm an open book. All right, subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this. And thanks for sticking around. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.